Welcome to the Everyday Millionaire Show with Ryan Greenberg and Nick Kalkas. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Millionaire Show. We are here with Chase, Nick, and Jeff Ervick. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Appreciate you guys having me on the show.
I was talking to somebody yesterday. I was talking to Tyler yesterday about the Benfield deals, and that I found you, and I was like, he's like, how did you meet him? And I'm like, I don't know. Ironically, my wife taught your daughter.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
I don't think that's how we met. I forget how we actually met. Oh, through I think
through
Sean Magner.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Sean, I've known Sean, I guess, since 2015 or so. My buddy actually went to high school with him. My college
In PA?
buddy. Yeah, Pennsylvania, Lancaster. So a buddy does real estate down in Dallas, right? And he's and I was talking to him one day about it, and I'm like, hey, I want to get into real estate. And he's like, all right, well, you should go meet my friend Sean. He lives in Baltimore City. Went to high school with him, and I think he's killing it. One of those things, right? So met Sean, took him out to lunch, picked his brain, and then end up going to a couple REI conferences, here locally, met some people, and that's kind of how I got into real estate. But yeah, that's how you and I met, because he brought you to your son's
baseball charity.
Yeah, we had
thing.
we had a cornhole tournament for his baseball team, his travel baseball team.
Smoked. This cornhole. Dude, there were some pro fucking cornhole players at this place. Is that recording that big camera on the top? Just to confirm. Okay, cool. That was a fun thing, but God, I got humbled. But there's some killers.
It's funny. The first time, like I consider myself pretty decent at cornhole, right? Like, backyard dad kind of thing, right? Played since I was college, whatever. And you're right. Like these guys will just hit, 3 out of 4 holes, right? And
some of them had jerseys.
Yeah, they had jerseys.
They had jerseys.
Yeah. Wow. There's a couple that came to a few of our events that were actually amateur cornhole players. They're based out of Pasadena. And so they travel around the country playing cornhole. It's insane. Yeah.
What a wild hobby. What a wild hobby to get into.
But, I mean, I like having fun and not really worrying about it. So, yeah.
So you have an interesting real estate story because your main, I don't know if it's your main now, but your main source of income, you have a W-2 job.
Sure, yeah.
A high income, well, can I say high income?
Yeah, that's fine.
High income W-2 job. And you've strategically used real estate to help with your W-2 taxes.
Yeah, so it started out where, looking to, yes, offset some taxes, but also more or less create a different passive income stream, right, with my W-2. So that's kind of where I started. Got into buying a couple rental properties, doing the BRRRR method. Found Dundalk as I looked into Baltimore City because Sean was in Baltimore City pretty heavy. I'm like, I think I'll hold off on that one. Ended up going to Dundalk, buying a couple of houses there. The first one I bought, it was crazy. It was like this temperature right now, like 30 degrees, 20 something degrees outside, middle of February, back in, I think it was 2016. And it was like one of those live auctions, right? So like people were out there, like there's an auctioneer and you're throwing up your hand, and I'm looking around, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to keep on bidding until I know this is what I want to pay for. I don't want to pay any more than this, right? So I ended up winning that deal, and that was my first go around into how to BRRRR a house.
Was that a BRRRR? Like you had to do the renovations?
Oh,
and
it was a pre-foreclosure auction, gut job kind of BRRRR method. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And how did you finance it? Like, I mean, just that's your first house. So like, what were you thinking? How did you finance it? Like you won the bid. Like what happened right after that?
Yeah, sure. So right afterwards, I was nervous as hell. I'm like, what the hell did I just get myself into?
Right.
I don't know what I'm doing and so forth. But there's this guy named Gabe who was kind of like helping me out and like kind of show me the ropes sort of thing. And the same token, Sean introduced me to Brooke Kane from Kane Investments, right? So I actually borrowed money from Brooke as a hard money lender for the deal. So borrowed his money enough to pay cash for the house and put the do all the rehab, right? And then once I got done, refinanced it out, and I think I left. I think I came back with like $3,000 from closing.
Nice.
So that sounds similar to what I did. I bought a house.
Yeah.
First house I purchased, I used Brooke Kane as well.
Yep.
And then I fumbled through the construction process until I was able to like find decent contractors towards the end. What was that process like for you in finding contractors?
Yeah, so I was still, I had a W-2 job at the time, right? So didn't really have a chance to, go out and vet a ton of contractors. So I used my relationships with people that I knew from the real estate masterminds that I was a part of. End up, hiring one of the guys as like a PM, right? And this guy already flipped about, I think he already has done maybe 10 or 15 homes at the time, right? And he lived up that area, so he had all the contacts. He had the engineer, the construction folks, the all the trades and so forth. So he was able to kind of help manage it for me while I was still working a job and kind of going back and forth. And of course, I wanted to go in and what I can do is swing some hammers and do some demo and so forth, but realize it. I was just kind of getting in the way, right? So I'm like, I'm going to let them do that, right? And then I just help kind of PM the project until we finished.
It's such a classic first-time investor thing. Like, well, I'm going to go do this part of it. And then you realize, like, what your hourly rate is, what you're getting for that. And you're like, nah. When I first bought, like, we bought, like, a couple of turnkey rentals with tenants in them. That was our first strategy. We didn't actually start with the BRRRR strategy. We started buying tenant occupied stuff.
Yeah, nice.
So we were doing maintenance calls, and I had we were YouTubing how to change a toilet, and I was like literally carrying a toilet into a house. I was a gym teacher at the time, and I was like, after school, my partner and I, Tyler, we would meet at the house and just try to fix the stuff ourselves.
Sure, yeah.
With like Ryobi tools, and like it was.
You walk in with a tool belt, like this is here,
Mr. Contractor, and that was short-lived, and I was like, I'm never gonna fix a toilet again. That's not gonna be on my thing. But most people that I know try to do it themselves. They try to manage it themselves. And it's just never worth it.
No, and for me, I think my time was better spent elsewhere, right? So the return on investment for me, that couple hours or a day of going through and trying to help these guys out and maybe save a couple bucks here and there, it wasn't worth it for me versus going out and winning a new deal, right, for my day job, right? So helping build those relationships and get that on the business side or on the real estate side was good because it allowed me to kind of like empower them or hire that person as like my PM for the job while he had subs that he would just kind of bring in, and then I would pay the sub, right? So he made a fee on top for just running it, right?
What is your W-2 job?
Yeah, so I sell technology solutions to the federal government, actually.
Oh, nice.
So, and I also run a cloud business too. So I have cloud and technology solutions. Yeah.
Nice.
Can you give us like an example of like what type of technology solution?
Yeah. So you've got a data center, right? And that data center has a bunch of servers in it. And the customer might need to either buy some more servers or refresh those servers, right? Maybe they're running end of life. That would be like the hardware portion of it. And then there's software. So maybe there's a new solution that they need to do identity access management for zero trust, right? So bringing in the right software and kind of working them together and having my team kind of manage the process.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's anything from cyber, network, data center, all that kind of stuff, right? So I've sold some Shure microphones in the past, right? So yeah.
And the data centers, are they owned by the government? I feel like aren't they mostly like private companies that own the data centers?
Yeah, I would say. I guess it depends, right? So the physical actual building is probably owned by somebody else, right? The government would, own the material or own the actual. Like servers inside there, different than like Amazon. Amazon will build a warehouse. They buy all the servers, they manage it, they do everything, and then they lease basically the cloud to you, right? You rent the cloud, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I know you do is syndications. So you buy apartment buildings, and I know you have strategy. Because we talked privately about a ton of different strategies that you use to help offset your W-2 income.
Sure.
And that's something that I think a lot of people like want to just like quit their job and get into real estate full time. And I've seen so many people come and go in this. We personally kept our full-time jobs for a long time before we figured that it was better to go full time into the business. And we actually started active businesses at the same time. So our home remodeling company, our property management company. So we had other streams of income rather than just relying on the passive income to, and Nick has a different story. He relied on all the passive income and he built an incredible business doing that. But we have all seen people come and go very quickly. Mm-hmm. So what strategies do you use to offset W-2 income? Because there's the rules of being a full-time real estate person, and what kind of strategies can you tell us about?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to do, right? It's not easy to be able to go and say, hey, I'm going to, buy a property and then offset my taxes on W-2, because you can't take passive losses and offset your active income.
Right.
So I have my wife, right? So she's my 100% partner, right, in all of our businesses. She helps manage all of our investments, manage our properties. She works right in our business for the syndication side. So she's actively involved in it. So able to have her be our real estate professional status.
Okay. That's the trick.
From our general partnership that we have. So even so, like, I invest in all of our deals, and I invest in other people's syndications too. I invest in a lot of different opportunities, right? For me, the most important thing for me is diversification, right? I want to diversify my portfolio, right? And I would like to talk about more how I do that and so forth, and what I've done, and how I also help coach other people to do that as well too. But ultimately, you've got your general partnership business, right? Which is our active real estate business. That's what owns our apartment complexes. What we do, asset management of those apartment complexes. We're involved in daily financial meetings and daily, construction meetings, right? Talking to contractors. Understanding what needs to happen at the property in order for it to add value and increase in our value, right? So that's the active side of a house, and then I invest as a limited partner in all my deals as an LP, as a passive investor. Right?
So, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
How'd you go from buying residential real estate to the syndication?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I had those rental properties in Dundalk, right? And I bought a couple other ones. I sold a few, flipped a few. I started doing private lending out of my self-directed IRA, which we'll get into talking about self-directed IRAs as well too. And I was looking to buy another rental property. I had, I think I ended up having 3 at the time, and I had the private lending going on. And I decided that, I really wanted to scale my portfolio, right? And buy bigger or get bigger, right? And think bigger about what I wanted to do for my own portfolio, right? And so for me, that was, okay, how do I buy an apartment complex? Or how do I, whether it's, a 5 unit, a 4 unit is not necessarily considered multifamily, but a 5 unit and above, right? Basically.
And what year was this?
This was 22.
Okay.
So 2022. Yep. So looking to, how do I invest, or how do I, own my own, right? Through that, I kind of stumbled across a couple different masterminds in the real estate business, which, those are all over the place, and you got some gurus telling you what to do and how to do it and so forth. So, joined one of those programs, but mainly to join the network, right? Because it was a massive network. And through that, I actually met my partner, Claudio. He lives right here down the road from us, who's also another business owner, owns a technology firm as well. And so he and I had the same vision, the same mindset, the same the goals, what we wanted to do, what we want to achieve. We have different skill sets. He's super articulate and creative when it comes down to the operations of businesses and growing and scaling businesses. And I was good at building relationships and talking to people, right? And from my sales career, right? So anyway, got to what the thought of wanting to scale my portfolio. That's how I got into this world of understanding, how to buy and acquire multifamily properties. And then we started our firm, Valorous Capital Partners, and then we started closing on a couple of deals. We got our feet wet, understood what we did right, what we did wrong, and continue to grow every single time. And since then, we've closed over 11 deals.
Nice.
So it's been a good journey the last couple of years, but ultimately, I was looking to scale. Right. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do what you guys are doing, right? As far as, owning a construction firm or even buying multiple single family properties to what I wanted to get, from that. And I think that was the reason why I chose to move away from the single family rentals to the multifamily.
So what did your first deal look like? And how did you analyze it to determine that avenue would be better for you than just buying a bunch of more residential real estate?
I think it's the ability to scale faster, right? Door count, valuation wise, And you're also not relying on, neighborly comps, right? And that's kind of the difference between, a regular single family investment property and a multifamily property. Multifamily is all based on net operating income, right? And also the cap rate and how that affects the value of the property. So if you operate the business efficiently, your property will grow in value, right? How we underwrite it is there's a template, or there's a Excel spreadsheet basically that we use, right, or a program we use to input all the parameters of the deal before to evaluate it or to underwrite the deal. I am not an expert in underwriting. I know I can get dirty with it, right, and I can get through it, and I understand what it is, but I'm not a pro at it, right? Which is why we partner with people who are pros on it, right? So we have a guy in our team who's been underwriting multifamily properties for the last 15 years. He's probably underwritten over 10,000 properties, right? He's acquired through his last firm. He was a CIO, Chief Information Officer of his last firm, which was a multi-billion-dollar firm in California that was doing the same thing, buying and operating multifamily properties. Well, he was the main person underwriting those deals, doing all the due diligence, understanding what needs to go into his underwriting to make sure it is going to be a successful property. So we partnered with him, and then that's how we multifamily is different than single family, where you need to have a team. Mm-hmm. You can't do it by yourself. There's no way that one person would ever be able to underwrite a deal, due diligence a deal, transact the closing of a deal, sign on the debt for the deal, raise all the money for the deal, asset management the deal, property management the deal, and then efficiently run it for the next 5 years all by yourself, right? You have to have a team, and that's what we rely on big time, is our team.
So for the listeners that are more residential, right, and they might not understand too much about commercial, and they're thinking, okay, well, if I own residential, I control the asset, there's tax breaks, right? Like the whole spiel for residential. What's your spiel for buying commercial or being in syndications where you get limited returns versus 100% returns if you own a single family? Sure.
Yeah. I think it just depends on what your investor DNA is, right? What do you want out of the investment, right? Are you looking for, you want that single family, you want that property, right, that you can see, feel, and touch, you can go to every single day. It's in your hometown. You can talk to the tenants, you can vet the tenants, you can do that stuff. If you want to be active in that business, by all means, go be active in that business, right? I mean, I'm never going to tell somebody, one way or the other is better than the other. This is just an opportunity I chose, right? So that's first and foremost. Like it depends on you, the investor. What are you trying to do, right?
Make more money. What makes more money?
Yeah, what makes more money? It just depends on what the value of that money is, right? So I would say with the single family investments, even I'll take for example my properties in Dundalk. I did the BRRRR method, all three of them, right? And you put tenants in there, tenants move out. You got $3,000 of capex you got to do at a minimum, probably, right, to fix that property up and get it rent ready again.
3,000 is a win.
Yeah, is a win, right? So let's call it. Okay, so what? 5,000 then,
5,000,
right? So $5,000, right? And if you're making, $350, on average, cash on cash return on that, right, or monthly cash flow on that, your whole and you have to transition every single year. Your cash flow is wiped out. Now, if you have a roof that needs to be repaired, right? Or hot water that goes, or you've got a flood or something like that, right? All these other things that come up, like these unknowns, for that single person or single asset, your cash flow is wiped out. And that's happened to me multiple times. Trust me. I've had multiple evictions out of my property. I've had to change multiple, AC units, hot water heaters, big plumbing jobs. Like my last one we did a $60,000 reno on it. And it looked beautiful, and it was actually done very quickly. But the main line in the basement was cracked, and nobody knew it, right? So it was flooding the entire basement. So we did I think it was a $4,000 or $5,000 job, right, just to repair the main line under the concrete, ripping up all the carpet, ripping up the bathroom, all that kind of stuff.
I just had that happen this year, that exact thing. Now, to kind of straw man because the reason that I didn't get into trying to think bigger and buy bigger is operating on NOI and getting your valuation on NOI, because a big part of the multifamily thing is like that liquidity event.
Yeah.
You have to refinance these properties typically every 5 years, right?
Yeah, I would say on average, yeah.
You bought a property in 2022. Mm-hmm. Rates were very good.
Yes.
When your rates go up on a multifamily property, your NOI goes down.
Correct.
So at that point, the bank could be now, instead of it being a liquidity event for you, it's a liquidity event for the bank, because they could be then requesting money rather than giving you money. Correct?
Yeah, sure. If you've got a deal where you need to bring cash in for a refinance, then that's definitely something that happens. I think we didn't start buying until 23, right? Evaluating in 22 and then bought in 23. But the folks who were buying in 2021,
when there's 3%
early 22
rates,
maybe, when they had they had a 3 something percent commercial rates and they were floating. That's what got people in trouble, right? Is that because
I know a lot of people that went bankrupt during that time, during this last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, deals were just, people were buying deals left and right. Right. And investors were throwing capital on them left and right because the cap rates were good and the interest rates were better. And, the evaluation or the underwriting looked good. Like nobody at that time knew that, oh my gosh, right, COVID's going to happen and rates are going to, triple in value.
I didn't know that either, but that's what scared me away.
Sure. Yeah.
So I didn't ever do that because I, at the time, didn't have the money to do to pay the bank, Yeah. So that's what kind of steered me away. But I guess you're saying you got in it when the rates already started kind of ticking up.
So even so, let's say we did get it into that point, right? So, if you operate the property well, right, and yes, you might have to have a capital event come in. It creates another opportunity, right? And so, in fact, actually, we created an opportunity out of that such thing. So. We created a private credit fund. We opened that up this past summer, and that invested into a multifamily property that needed a cash in to help refinance it, lower that interest rate, lower the debt, while they were putting in tax abatement programs. So we were helped this 249 unit Class A deal in Houston, Texas, refinance and restructure their debt. Lower the interest rate from it went from exactly what we're talking about, 3 something, whatever it was, ballooned up to like almost 9 to 10%, right? And then it slowly came down, but it was still too much, right? So we restructured it at a low 6. I think it was right at like 6.03 or something like that. And it's a fixed rate now, right? And that property also implemented a tax abatement strategy, which then reduced and removed all of the taxes, right? So then you don't have taxes on the property. So you reduce 2 of the most expensive 3 things on your property: insurance, taxes, and mortgage, right? So that created an opportunity for us to create a fund. We raised $2.5 million, put it into the fund, put it into the property, and that property is now paying my fund back 14%, right? So and that gives So again, finding an opportunity in a situation like that where it could have been a very disastrous thing for that group turned out to be a blessing, right? Turned out to be an awesome opportunity. Now, we were talking about the difference or the multifamily and so forth. Again, I think you want to go back to the ability to scale, or actually like the number of units, right? Because if you think about 100 unit of property, that when my single family rental, when that person moves out, right, or stops paying rent, or I have to evict that person, or a big CapEx project comes up, right, that kills my cash flow for that unit, right? But when that happens on a 100 unit property, you don't really feel it, right? When it happens even 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times, you don't really feel it. Right. So now, yes, your revenue or your rent will fluctuate that month and so forth. Right. But it's not as it's not as big of an event if you have a single family home versus a 100 unit where one person gets evicted or you have to move out. Right. So that was another reason why I liked the opportunity for multifamily. Right. Because it gives you that economies of scale. And in the same token, instead of having to bring on a construction person or a maintenance person every time and pay those, higher fees for, I've got to bring a maintenance person to the property. So, hey, that plumber's going to charge me, $250 to $300 just to show up. Mm-hmm. Right. So we are able to hire full-time maintenance staffs, right, for our properties, right, where they're there full-time. So, and the property pays for it. Right. So, you get a better return, right, from having a maintenance person on site working through all of these deals or all the maintenance issues. You also have a leasing strategy and leasing coordinators and so forth, right? So you have on-site staff that helps manage the property and manages what's the operations of the property.
The way I've heard it described is it's its own ecosystem. Mm-hmm. It creates its own ecosystem where you can support an in-house team to help manage that.
And also depends on the size. So not every multifamily, like a 20 unit wouldn't be able to support a full-time staff, right? So if you have 3 or 4 20 units all in within a 5-mile radius, then you can hire, you can combine them and hire one, and that person can float around all of them, right? But if you, like I'd say on average, it's usually 100 and plus, 100 unit plus is where you get on-site leasing and you get on-site maintenance.
Yeah, that was my next question. What at what point when you're scaling do you get that on-site staff? I guess my follow-up question would be for people that are looking into commercial, how did you get started into that space? I mean, I know you went to the networking events and then the relationships, but how do you put that team together in the commercial side of things? Because the residential side is pretty easy. You find the contractor, you find your hard money guy, and you're pretty in property manager, and you're pretty set.
Yeah, you gotta vet people, right? And you got to build a relationship, and you got to, it's kind of trust and verify, right? So you got to trust a person, but then verify they're going to do the job, right? But then when you're partnering with another general partner on a deal, there is an operating agreement, so everyone has to abide by the operating agreement, roles and responsibilities of that, right? So we kind of divvy up responsibilities and say, okay, your group is responsible for this portion, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that, and then collectively we make decisions on major things that go on, like refinances or major capex projects if we're not already putting that into the business plan already, or exit strategy as well too. And usually you want to have a few different exit strategies, right? So you mentioned earlier about a 5-year cycle. So you'll see there's different asset classes, right, in multifamily. So you got your class, and also kind of similar in single family, you got your nice areas and your not so nice areas, right? So we look for properties that are in nicer areas, class B areas, so to speak, class A, B areas, but might be a rougher asset, right? So the goal would be to value add that, right? So you buy it, mismanage or mismanaged or neglected asset, right? Yeah. And add value to it. So you force that appreciation by updating the units, painting the exterior, redoing the roofs, new HVACs, doing stuff, adding some playgrounds, certain things to beautify, right, the asset and create a better space for the residents. Mm-hmm. And then by doing that, you're also looking to increase rents a little bit too. Right now, we don't go to a point where we're going to say, all right, hey, market rent is $1,500. We're going to make it $1,500 or more, right? You got to slowly increase them as you go, and you got to test the market. And that's what a good marketing strategy does. And by doing that, by increasing those rents for each of those units a couple $100, right? But offering a better product, right? So we're offering nicer accommodations for that resident and for their family. You get to appreciate the value faster, right? So you're not just waiting for time, right, to appreciate it. You're actually forcing that up with that increased rents. Same thing as a BRRRR strategy. Basically, it's a massive BRRRR strategy, right, is what it is, right? Yeah. And then there's different finance strategies. So you can do like a bridge loan, which is kind of like a larger, not really hard money loan, but it's a loan that has a higher interest rate, usually interest only for a year or two. And they also bundle in the CapEx in there as well too. So that way you can do your business plan, and then the goal would be to stabilize the property and refinance it. We've also found that we have a couple of those deals, and they're a pain to work through, right? They're hard, right? So, and it requires a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, right, from our team.
The bridge loans?
The heavy value adds, right, that require bridge loans, because a Freddie and Fannie institutional debt, they're not going to put debt on something that looks like that, right? So you're going to have to fix it up, get that bridge loan at first, fix it up, and then go and refinance into institutional debt. So we've kind of shifted our strategy a little bit now, where we're looking for opportunities that are able to get that institutional level debt first, right? So the Freddie, Fannie Mac, the really good debt on it. So it's fixed rate. Like our last one we just got, I think it was like just under 6% or 5.75% fixed for 5 years with 2 years of interest only. And I think it has a 1%, refinance fee after 5 years, right? Our goal would be to exit that property in 5 years though. So our time frame matches usually the debt, right? So if it's a 5-year term, then we're going to hold it for 5 years, and our goal would be to sell it in 5 years. But, another section on that, as far as the passive income for the investors, right? Investors come in, they're limited partners, right? So you mentioned, okay, so why would somebody want to invest in a multifamily deal versus buy their own rental property? Well, you can invest, probably the same amount of money, right, into a multifamily property. And you're not required to be on meetings every week or pick the color of the paints or worry about tenants, termites, and trash, all that kind of thing. Our team manages that portion of it, right? The operational side of it. And they're the limited partner, but they still get the ability to receive depreciation through a K1 because they're limited. So they're basically fractional owners, right, of the property. So they're buying shares in our operating agreement that is actually buying the property.
It's like buying a stock of Nike. You can't control what Nike makes, but yes, you can get the dividends from it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're able to partake in the losses, the paper losses up front, right, from doing cost segregation studies and bonus depreciation. And we do that on all of our properties, by the way. So we're able to get it now with 100% bonus depreciation, be able to get that up and pass that on to our investors, pro rata how much they're putting into the investment, right? This is kind of where the tax strategy comes into play too, because a limited partner won't be able to take that and put that against their active income. All right. A passive investment can't offset active income, right? So even I went to earlier, I invest in my properties as a passive income. I can't take that, even though I'm a general partner in the deal and I'm getting general partner losses on my general partner business, my investment business in the same deal doesn't partake in, or depreciation that can offset my active income, right? So that only can handle or only can offset passive incomes, right? So everyone, again, not tax advice, right? But work with your CPAs and your financial folks on that, right? But it's very smart for people. It's very, very, you have to understand what you're after, right? So what I tell people all the time is if you invest in your first deal, right, you're going to get a bunch of passive losses, right? If you can't use them, right, your CPA will tell you if you can use them or not, then you can push them forward or you can push them down the road, right? Until, you have such an event like a liquidity event of selling this, or you've earned cash returns, like cash returns, like a dividend on it. Mm-hmm. Let's say you earn $6,000 on that, but your depreciation for the year is $20,000 loss. So then you can offset that. So you won't pay taxes on that because it's passive income offset by passive losses, right? So that's when it gets very powerful. When you've got, like I've got some investors who have been investing in syndications for 10 years and they invest in 2 or 3 different syndications a year. Well, after 5 years, those 2 or 3 are exiting and they buy more. Next year, 2 or 3 are exiting, but they're buying more. And then they keep on stacking them up. So they're having 10, 15 different exits a year, right? Those exits also have recapture, but you can offset that, right, with the depreciation from the new property you're purchasing too. So there's a lot of strategies that come on that, but it's like snowballing the effect, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm very excited for that, just to build that kind of snowball that's going to continue to grow and have different tax advantages as well too.
A limited partner, do they get a percent of would that be like of the monthly cash flow based on whatever they put into the deal?
Yeah, correct.
And is it all based on the cash that is in the deal, not what the value, like what the property's worth?
It doesn't. It has nothing to do. The cash flow has nothing to do with what the value of the property is, because really that's just paper value right now, right? And just like selling a stock, you don't have you don't either lose or gain money until you sell that stock, right? So the equity we build in the property over that 5-year period continues to grow for that investor, but we offer them distributions, right? Or distributions based on cash flow, right? So as operating the property, as we build up our reserves, right? And we have an extra, $100,000 per quarter, so to speak, right? Let's just round numbers. Let's say we've got an extra $100,000 from, the 3 quarters of cash flows, right? And we've got enough reserves in our bank and enough operating, income to make sure we're able to pay all of our expenses in the debt service. Then we'll take that and we'll distribute it to our investors, right? So it'll be, like I said, pro rata their investment around. So if somebody invests $50,000, they'll get their portion of it. Someone invests $500,000, they'll get their portion of it. Right, so it just depends.
And then after 5 years, if the property is sold and there's a profit, they would get a percent of the profit.
Yeah. So we structure it in a way where there's a preferred return, right? So, and I'm going to use round numbers and typical numbers in syndication business, but you have what's called let's say it's 8% preferred return. That means the first after expenses and fees, the first 8% goes to the investor, and that's on an annual basis. So let's say we only distribute 5% year 1. That means there's a 3% carryover for year 2. So we have to distribute 11% year 2 in order to make sure we catch up on that preferred return. So it's a cumulative, not a compounding effect, right? So after that 8% preferred return is met, so let's say we meet it in year 1, we pay the investors 8% return on their money. So someone put $100,000 in, they make $8,000 in cash flow year 1. Usually paid quarterly, right? Then the property or the remaining would be split between the general partners and the limited partners, and usually it's around a 70 to the investors, 70 to the limited partners, and a 30 to the general partners. Sorry, so let's say there's an additional $100,000 of income that we can distribute to our team. We've already met that 8% preferred return. $70,000 would go pro rata to them, and $30,000 would go to into the general partners, right? And so when we go upon a sale, the same thing, right? So if we've already met the preferred returns, then the sale and all the promote, it's called. So after we paid the preferred return, after we paid back their initial capital into the deal, and paid all the banks and all the other people, right? Then there is a promote. And so let's say that promote is $1 million, then we'll split that pro rata 70-30 to the investors, to the partners.
So the GPs, they typically don't put money in, it's just the investors, but the GP basically structures the deal and manages it?
No, we always invest in our own deals, yeah.
But not all GPs have to, right?
No, not all GPs have to. It depends on what your responsibilities are.
I feel like it's an easier sell to the LPs if the GPs are also
totally money. Yeah. I mean, we require anybody who joins our one of our projects, one of our deals, that they also invest in the deal, right? So I think it's important, right? It's
skin in the game.
Skin in the game. It's putting your money where your mouth is, right? And if I'm not willing to invest my own cash, then why am I going to go and try to ask this person to invest their cash into the deal, right? To me, it just doesn't make sense. So yeah, there's GP money is put in the deal. Typically, usually it's about a 10 to 20% of the total raise, right? So if the raise is $5 million, usually about $500,000 comes from our partnership, right, into the deal. Yeah.
So that 70% that's to the investors, that's like split evenly between however
Not
many
evenly,
investors?
it's based on how much you put in.
Pro rata their investment, yeah. So in the way we have a portal, so I have a deal portal that we put a deal into, and all the investors come in, they sign all of our docs. We have usually we're going to do a 506C, which is for accredited investors only. So we'll open that portal up. Investors will come in, we'll verify that they're accredited, and then if they're accredited, which we can get into that if you want to, what that means, but if not, people can Google what an accredited
$1 million net worth, makes over $500,000 a year,
200 single, 300 for a married couple.
Yep.
Foreseeable future, right? That sort of. So if they're an accredited investor, they can go into our portal. They can review the PPM, which is a private placement memorandum, and the subscription documents, and also the operating agreement of the actual property that they're going to be investing into. They would sign the docs in that portal, and then they would commit. Let's say they commit $100,000 into the deal. it would calculate how much of the ownership they have, right? So when it shows them that they own, whatever, 3.5%.
If it's 100,000 of $1 million, they get 10%.
Exactly. So they own 10% of the deal, and then we would distribute it into our distributions go out through that portal as well too, and it calculates based on, all of the investors what their distribution is. And so it's actually pretty cool. Right?
How many investors do you typically have on one deal?
I'd say anywhere from like 30 to 50.
So 30 to 50 is split up between that 70%, depending on how much they.
Yeah, it depends on how much the raise is. Gotcha. Yeah.
So that 30% could potentially be the same as that 70% for the GPs then.
So, I'm sorry.
In a scenario where, let's say there's 3 GPs and they're all putting in $100,000 each for the deal.
Yep.
And you got to raise $1 million.
Yep.
GPs put in 30%. The other 70% is coming from 7 other people, 100,000 each. Once that's 70% split, if you guys profit $1 million, 700,000 goes to those 7 people. Each is getting 100,000, but you guys are also getting 100,000 too. So so that could be the same in the same sense, the same amount.
Yeah, but the GP is also getting a fee, right? A management fee too.
Yeah. So usually on the properties, you're going to have a property management fee. You guys are obviously familiar with that. An asset management fee, right? So to manage the assets. And up front, there's usually an acquisition fee. The acquisition fee is for the time and energy and all the costs for us to go ahead and get the property, because it costs a lot of money, right, to buy a $10 million property, right? It's not just going in and say, hey, I'm going to write a check and go ahead and buy a $10 million property. You have to hire lawyers. There's bank lawyers. There's brokers. There's a lot of people we have to pay.
We had to do that to buy these stupid offices here. It was the hardest transaction I've ever done for $350,000. Like it was, because it's commercial technically.
Yep.
It was the hardest. It was probably the hardest refinance that I've ever done. Is these 2 little offices that we own. So the lawyers had to write the contract, and
they got to make sure they agree together. They talk about it.
It wasn't just like a real estate regular contract that one of our transaction coordinators could do, or it was lawyer to lawyer. It was it was a pain.
Yeah, I mean, so we hire our lawyers before we even put an offer in, right? So our lawyers will review. We'll do what's called an LOI, right? So you put a letter of intent in, right? Say, hey, I'm going to buy your property for $10 million. Here's our background. Here's our collective team's experience and so forth. This is why we can close the deal. So brokers want to make sure that they present the best offer to their seller. So we'll put an LOI in, right? And then after that LOI is accepted, then we'll negotiate what's called a PSA, the purchase and sale agreement. That PSA is important, right, to make sure you hammer out all those details, and that's where the lawyers kind of go back and forth as well too, because you can live and die, right, by a PSA, right? If you negotiate it correctly and you put the right terms in for the contract and what the seller is responsible for, and what you, the buyer, are responsible for, it makes the deal.
And what's a PSA for
a purchase and sale agreement?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of learning this too, because Sean's actually doing a transaction, one of the agents on my team, for a commercial property for one of his clients on a bed and breakfast. And he just put a LOI in, and he was like, I thought we, wrote the contract and then we negotiated. And he was like, commercial is so different, man. You negotiate, then you write the contract, and then you might negotiate a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like after you put an LOI in and then you do your due diligence, right, and then the PSA comes in, you could go back and say, hey, you didn't tell us that the plumbing was, broken in these 4 or 5 different areas from the street in, right, which is responsible from the property, right? So you got to fix the plumbing before we buy this property, if they don't disclose certain things, right? So, but, it's a fine line, right? Going back and retrading, right? Like you don't want to put offering for 10 million and come back, when nothing's wrong with the property and be like, now we're gonna buy for 9 million. We don't want to buy for that, or you got to fix this or fix that, right? You have to kind of do your due diligence almost before the LOI, and then really thoroughly after you have the PSA or the LOI signed, right, or accepted.
Can we talk about the self-directed IRAs? Because my parents are finally, after me doing this for 10 years, are ready to invest.
Nice. Awesome.
And
there you go.
They have a retirement account.
Sure.
They were both, my dad was a W-2 earner and has a pension and then a separate retirement account. And they want to move one of those retirement accounts over to, based on my accountant's advice, move it over to a self-directed IRA.
Sure.
And there's only very few companies in the country that do these things, like the actual self-directed IRA.
Yeah.
A real because then there's an SRD. So there's two different types of directed IRAs.
Yeah.
I'm learning that. And there's only like the one you can only invest into one thing annually. The other thing is like the Wild West.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the company you're setting it up with, right?
What company do you use?
So I use a company called Equity Trust.
Yep.
So they are the largest in the industry, I would say.
That's who Kyle uses. That's who owns technically Dorsey, or owned Dorsey, is Equity Trust, and we had to go through that whole process with his self-directed IRA.
So I've got actually, in fact, I'm on my website. We'll share the link with you guys too. I actually did a podcast with my partner at Equity Trust about self-directed IRAs. And people can even contact him directly and go set up theirs. I don't get paid for it. It's just, I just love the fact that it gives my investors an opportunity to go, do something that I've done, right? I did this back in 2017. I set up my self-directed IRA, and that's when I started private lending out of it, right? So I would say I'd send, I actually had an investor who would send, 30 or 40 grand every time he wanted to buy a new property up in upstate New York. And he would pay me 12% plus 3 points, right? So I treated it kind of like a hard money deal.
Yeah.
And sometimes they said, hey, well, can you do it for 10 instead of 12 and so forth? And so, yeah, we negotiated here and there, right? But, we underwrote the property, you send the title company does the promissory note and the deed or the mortgage, right? And you have them do it so you're in first lien position, all that kind of stuff, right? But going back to your parents, right? So self-directed IRAs, there are the main ones are your traditional and Roth IRAs, right? And then you have a checkbook IRA, right? Or a checkbook LLC IRA, which is basically you have an LLC that owns the IRA and you have checkbook control. So if you're buying a rental property and you want to write, and you got to do, and you're doing the rehab, you can't be managed. So you wouldn't be able to do it because you can't be managing it if it was your own. You can do it for your parents,
right?
But you can't be doing the work in the property itself. Like you have to hire an actual contractor, but you can write a check. Say that person needs $5,000 to pay their plumbers or whatever it is. You can write a check out of the IRA and give it to them, and then that's how you can use that as for a checkbook.
So now the question is, and I guess the solution for this is because for my parents' sake, they have, let's just call it $250,000 that they have in this one account. It's a 457 or whatever, one of those not a 401k, but something very similar.
So 403b or something like that.
Yes, exactly. If they just liquidated it and gave me that money, they would have a tax event.
Sure.
And they've been saving this up for the last 30 years into this account. With the self-directed IRA, they can move that let's just call it 250,000 over to a self-directed IRA with no tax event.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So all they're doing, and again, there might be specific parameters around this 403b versus if someone had already had a traditional IRA. So I'm going to speak on a traditional IRA side because I don't know that specifics. I'd have to talk to my guy Paul at Equity Trust because he knows that information, right?
You have to link me with him.
Yep, I will. And so if you have say you had a 401k you contributed to for your careers, right, or multiple 401ks, and eventually you left that job and you brought them into an IRA. You have a traditional IRA because it was pre-tax money in a traditional IRA. And that custodian is a Schwab or Fidelity or Morgan Stanley or whoever might own it, right? You can only invest into the 10 mutual funds that they choose, right? You can't invest into anything alternative, gold, you can't invest into crypto or real estate, all that kind of stuff. So yes, you create an account with a custodian, right? The custodian, I'm going to say Equity Trust, there's Horizons out there. There's like 7 or 8 big ones out there, right? So you open up a traditional or whatever, like for like, traditional IRA account with that custodian, the self-directed custodian. You tell your current custodian, liquidate my account and transfer or mail or check or wire the money over to this other custodian, and here's all the information. So that gives them, like, you don't get the money and send it to them. It goes right from custodian to custodians, right? So it's a non-taxable event. You're just basically transferring it from one account to another, right? You're not withdrawing it. You're not taking distributions out of it. You're just transferring it to another custodian. Once it lands in that custodian's lap or in their bank account, it's in your account, so you can see it. you have to do what's called a direction of investment. So let's just say your parents wanted to invest into a syndication, right? Or something like that. Now, the tricky part is they wouldn't be able to invest directly with you, right? Because you can't invest with your parents, your children, or even like your spouse. But like your cousin, I think you can invest with your cousin, your third cousin and your sister's boyfriend's husband or whatever it is, you can invest with that person, right? But you can't invest with direct, descendants.
Wait, does that mean that he couldn't borrow the money?
Correct.
Okay.
So you'd have to figure that out and talk to Paul. He can help you kind of figure out how to navigate that, right? But let's say your parents want to take that money.
But they could be a partner with me on something using that money.
Yeah, they could be the partner. Yeah, they could be an equity partner.
I think that's because we did talk to somebody not from Equity Trust, from another company, and that's kind of the route that they said, like they would just become a partner, not a lender.
Yeah, because they can't lend the money to you, but they can invest into a deal that they are also part owners in, or their IRA would be an owner in. So that
was my backup plan for this Benfield deal,
gotcha.
And we could talk about that too. Was to partner with them and use that money because it's literally the exact money that we need for the down payment, and they were going to
might not be a bad idea, to be honest with you.
And does it cost money to lend out of your IRA?
Yeah, there are fees, right? So there are account setup fees, right? Maybe a couple $100.
It was $600 for the people that we talked to.
Yeah,
an annual.
But do you have to pay like an interest on the money that you're lending?
No. You don't pay any interest. All they do is charge a fee to set it up, and then a fee for an annual fee, right? Gotcha. Or maybe it might even be like there might even be a transactional fee, like if you need to wire the money by tomorrow, right? Then they might charge you a $75 fee for that or something like that. Now, if there are some, so you got to look at the fee structures for like a few of them to kind of get what it is. Some of them charge you like $2,000 just to open up an account, and others don't charge you anything to open up an account, but to invest in a deal, they'll charge you, $500 or $600 or whatever it is. And then there's also a percentage of how much is in the account that they charge you on an annual basis. So $250 might be, I don't know, maybe it's a half a point or something like that they charge you.
Yeah.
Where was I going to go with that? Yeah. So I think it is. I love the fact that we can do this, right? Because it gives you such flexibility to invest into real estate deals. It gives you you can invest into crypto through these accounts. You can invest in gold or silver. You can invest in stock market if you want to, but why would you do that if you're already investing elsewhere?
Right.
And then you can invest in private equity. Right, so you can lend money to people, right, as a private lender, or you can send it. Hey, I have this private equity deal that I want to put in that in 10 years could be a 10x or 15x return, right? Obviously, it's a risk of private equity deal, right? But look at Peter Thiel, right, the guy who had PayPal, right? He went. I think he did all of his investments, or he started it with his IRA, and now his IRA is worth like $5 billion or something.
Yeah, I was just talking to my Merrill advisor today about putting some money into some PE stuff, like with OpenAI and all these companies that are probably going to.
I got a guy who has got tons of good venture deals, and he's really good if you want to introduce you to him.
So I do want to talk about these Benfield houses because it's funny enough. The podcast that we talked about, I don't know if you were even on this yet, when we had Brooke Kane in my basement.
Oh, yeah, I was.
So, because we bought the house together. Yeah. So we had Brooke Kane on the podcast.
Yeah.
I think that was the second time on the podcast.
I love Brooke. Brooke's awesome.
Yeah, great guy. But at the time, Chase and I had the opportunity, and Tyler, to buy the first two Benfield deals, that duplex. And Nick weighed in. We asked the listeners to weigh in. We bought the place for $550. Let's just say we put $100K into it with between renovations and stuff like that. It appraised at 1.15 or almost 1.2 million. We asked, what would you do? Would you sell it or would you keep it?
Yeah.
The cash flow is not great.
Yeah.
It's not a cash flow deal, but we had $400,000 in equity. And Nick said sell it. Everybody said sell it. And then
refi it.
We refied it and we kept it. And it doesn't cash flow well, but I'll say we had to keep the tenants at their rate for I don't know, 6 months. Let's just say it was like $1,800. So we were actually losing thousands of dollars a month for a couple months. And then we basically doubled the rent when they left, and they left the place. This is why I love these Class A assets. We didn't have to do a single thing to the house after they left because we had renovated it while they were there.
Oh, excellent.
We did a full renovation, not a full renovation, but a cosmetic renovation while they were living there.
Sure.
they went away for 2 weeks, and I had people there working like basically around the clock to get it done. And we gave them, I think we gave them a month free. We gave them a month free for us to be able to come in and do the renovations. We're like, we're going to give you a new kitchen, we're going to give you a new bath, give you a month free. You can go somewhere else, you can go on vacation, whatever, but we're going to be working here. And they were cool. They, everything was good. We doubled the rent, and not doubled, but almost doubled the rent. And the house was, when they moved out, literally they had steam cleaned the carpets. It was perfect. We didn't have to do any touch-up paint. We didn't have to do any, there was no CapEx involved. So that's what made me start loving that Class A asset. Now, the guy who sold us those deals bought the two next to it for the listeners. I now have the contract to purchase those other two. And again, we're going to buy it. And those two already were fully renovated, appraised at $1.2 million, and he wants $1.05 for the property. So we're going to purchase that property. We're going to put $250,000 down, just as a regular DSCR, 25% down. And the play is that we're going to try to subdivide the middle lot and build something new. But from a cash flow perspective, the deal is not a home run at all. But from a future perspective, it could be a very profitable piece of real estate in a Class A community that in Severna Park, there are just no rentals. Like, nobody has rentals.
It's very hard to find them. Yeah, it is. And good ones. Like, so I had some friends that were renting in our neighborhood, and their place wasn't nice. Like, it was like they were like, well, this has just been a rental for 20 years, right? And there are a few nice ones. Like, in fact, my neighborhood, and actually Severna Park in general, has a lot of military folks, right? Folks who work at Fort Meade, and or even people come in from different transfers in military. So
that's where we drag Chase from.
Oh yeah, there you go, nice. Actually, we talked about that. Yeah. So my two of my neighbors, one's a Canadian military, right, who's here for a couple of years, renting up a spot right next to me, and the other one just moved in from, I think they were in Hawaii, right? So they're able to get great spots here and so forth. But the beauty about having that kind of rental here is that the market is so hot for a rental in Severna Park, right? People just want to be in Severna Park and have the school district for their kids and so forth. So you're not going to have an issue renting that out, right? Ever. Right?
Yeah.
So, and the tenants you're going to get are going to be nice.
And
right?
they're typically, this is the other problem with a lot of the other asset classes that I've started investing in, is they turn over, the Class C, D, whatever you want to call them, they turn over every year, 2 years if you're lucky. The life cycle of these Class A assets is, especially here, most of them are families with kids. They want to have those kids be in that school district for long term. Like the other two Benfields that we're about to buy, the one is on a 4-year lease.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's like, we know for 4 years we're not going to have a $10,000 turnover event. Whereas my house is in 21218. I'll be lucky if I get 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's, but again, we have to put $250,000 down. That's why I called you. Originally, we were going to use some private money from you. Turns out we just refinanced some stuff and we got the money together, but we are looking for a third partner, so that we're going to continue that conversation.
Yes, continue that conversation, figure that out for sure. Yeah, it's awesome.
But
no,
yeah.
I love all the, like, the stuff you guys are doing also with the home builds, right? The custom home builds. So that I think is such a cool market to be able to find, because again, it's not like it's a quick flip or anything like that, right? But it's you're building value in a community that you're either taking down an older house, right, or you're taking a lot that could have been a dangerous lot or whatever it might be, and you're not dangerous as in like kids playing in it and getting hurt or whatever, to now you're building beautiful homes for residents, like new homes. So I think that's an awesome play too.
Yeah, I mean, we live in an area that's very dense, so when you find land and you could build a single house, we talked about this the other day, and Chase and we've always talked about the reason that we're sticking with these single, double, up to 4 lot basically builds is because we are in this kind of lane that not a lot of people are in. The flipper that will hire a contractor and flip a cosmetic house or whatever cannot do what we do on this side. They just don't operate that way. But then on the contrary, Ryan Holmes and D.R. Horton also don't want to get involved in that, because it's
they want the 250 lots or whatever.
They want a big tract that they can build on. But there is long-term holdings for that. So like right now, I didn't even tell Chase this, but we got our first comments back on a lot Azalea that we bought. Is that in Glen Burnie?
Yeah.
So we bought a lot in Glen Burnie, and we did our initial build to get our building permits, and found that the county has a sewer line that's encroaching on our lot.
Oh wow.
So they're trying to make us do this thing that's going to cost time and money to move where we're going to put our taps in.
Yeah.
So we basically went back to the county. The engineer went back to the county and was like, no, you're trespassing on our lot. You need to move this thing. Yeah. So now we're fighting back and forth with them on that before we can get approval. So like we're a few months in now, like, I don't know, 3 months in, maybe 3 months, 2 months in. And we hopefully by mid-February we'll have approval once we did comments, the first set of comments, we've passed those, and now we're working through this one. But once we start that, then it's another 6 months to build it.
Yep.
So you got to be, and the bank, for all you listeners out there, if you're trying to get into development, the bank does not like land.
No.
They do not want to lend on land. We had to pay cash for that, full cash. There's no lender on it. And if you could get a hard money lender, then the deal doesn't make sense. Because then
too much money.
You're just paying way too much interest. So for anybody that's listening that's trying to get into that, make sure you have the timeline and the capital to do those kind of deals, because they're profitable. The one in Annapolis right now that we have groundworks, plumbing, we have a big foundation in. We have foundation in, groundworks are there. Yeah. So all the PVC is on, with gravel. And then it snowed.
6 inches of ice.
So now ice, they did just snow. Ice dumped.
So now we have 6 inches of ice on top of our groundworks. We cannot get the next inspection until the plumbing inspector can see the groundworks.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So this is what my plan was. I think I told you this morning. I was going to have my guys go put a tarp over the foundation. So there'll be an 8-foot hole with a tarp over it, and then big kerosene heaters to melt the ice.
Just to melt the ice, yeah.
So that it was either that or we send people in there with pickaxes and removing it. But now, since the foundation's in, we do have a lending.
Oh, good.
Luckily, only on the construction. So I think we've only drawn like 80,000 or something.
On the draw.
Yeah. So we're only paying 9%, 9.5% on 80,000 right now, which isn't crazy, but we're stuck. I can't do anything until the ice melts, or we go melt it ourselves so we can see the plumbing, so we can get to the next phase, and then we can go vertical. And once we can go vertical, then the bank will give us our next draw.
Yeah.
But we're just floating. I had to pay the foundation guy. We had to pay the backfill guy. We had to pay the utilities guy. All of that came out of pocket. So we're floating.
Oh, wow.
Like $100,000+.
Yeah.
Plus the purchase,
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart, right? So you got to make sure that you know what you're doing, right? And you can't, but those are certain things that like you can't underwrite, or you can't underwrite a snowstorm coming and hitting this area that was a generational storm, right? That dumped an inch of ice on top of 8 inches of snow, and it hasn't got above freezing the past week, right? Which is not going to, right?
Yeah.
So it hasn't got above 20 in the past.
Yeah, so I literally am going to like build a tent, like a teepee, and put a heater in there. And like Mike, I was with Mike Griffin, a politician that we work closely with, and he's like, just light a fire in there. I'm like,
is there PVC?
Can you say that?
No thanks.
Can you say that again, Mike?
I'm like, well, I could pay to replace the PVC, but this is downtown city of Annapolis, so it's not even Anne Arundel County. It's a whole different jurisdiction, which has a whole nother set of rules. So I'm like, I'm not going to go set a bonfire in there, but I think kerosene heaters and a tarp could work. So that's our next step if this thing doesn't actually melt next week, because we're just waiting. We're just waiting with a big hole in the ground and an ice skating rink on top.
Well, I think you bring up a good point as far as like using that kind of development for earning different incomes, right? So for example, earning passive income, right? A lot of high net worth individuals or high earners want to find different ways to do that, and how can they get into different passive income streams? That's why we do the syndications, the rentals, the private credit funds, so forth. But another asset class is building homes, right? And partnering with somebody like yourself, that can manage all of that and knows how to do the construction, knows all the people for the permits. Like, you can't just jump off a street and be like, all right, I'm going to go buy a lot and build a house, right? Because you don't know the contacts, you don't know how to do that. So like we did the same thing. Like part of our strategy was to do that. So when we went down and we partnered with a builder in Houston, right? Who's actually we're partners with on that Class A deal in Houston as well too. And they are a couple that builds, 3 or 4 houses a year, right? And so we partnered with them, built 2 $850,000 spec homes and custom homes in Houston, and it was a good return, right? And so I think, having that as an alternative income stream for somebody is huge, right? So, and that's what I think. Just kind of get back to, like, one of the biggest things that I do is I look for opportunities, right, to diversify my own portfolio, and then help people who don't know how to find those opportunities do that as well too, right? Starting with their W-2 job, like you mentioned from the beginning onset, like, yes, I'm a W-2 employee for a company, and I'm an advocate for people to stay in your W-2 job and build passive income on the side, right? There's a lot of gurus out there who say, like, you gotta, if you want to,
you gotta dive right in.
You gotta leave your day job, right, or so forth to do this, and I'm the opposite. I'm like, use what use that. Until you get to a position where, hey, okay, it makes sense. Maybe like you guys, it makes sense to leave the day job and just do. Well, obviously, you went from a day job to an active income job to do passive income, right? But
I didn't go. Yeah. I never actually went without a job because I was working then for my own company that is not a passive company whatsoever.
Yeah, you're still putting in 40 hours a week or more, right?
Yeah, way more.
Way more, probably.
Way
right?
more. Yeah.
In your job or in your current job, but you went from W-2 to your own business owner, right? Which is awesome, right? A lot of people don't have that or can't do that, right? So in order to continue to grow your portfolio and diversify in your passive income, you need that income from your W-2, right? And so having a model or having a kind of a playbook, right, is important for a lot of people because they just don't know where to start or where to begin. And so I actually wrote an ebook about that, right? How to earn passive income as a W-2 employee. I'll pass the link to you guys too. You can put it on our website. But it goes through kind of like my story of what I did and how I did it. And being able to also invest into stock markets and stuff that is, the 401ks and so forth, and putting your money there, and then also using that, right, to also invest in other things if you want to do different arbitrage ways. There's a lot of different things we can talk about. But,
what's your opinion on when is the right time? And you don't have to get into specific numbers. I will just be transparent. When I was teaching full time, I was making like $58,000 a year, and then I took 3 years to retire, quit, whatever you want to call it. I went part time. I went 4 days a week, and then I went 3 days a week, and then during COVID, I was like, that's it. I'm done. I was making like $30-something thousand a year as a 3-day a week employee, and I was scared to leave, and my parents were scared for me to leave the job. And that month I made, I think the month that I decided to quit, it was July, I forget the year, I made $160,000.
Sure, yeah.
And my mom, when I told her I called school and told them that I'm not coming back, she's like, you're going to lose everything. What are you doing? Yeah. This is what you went to college for? Like, I'm like, Mom, I just made more in 1 month than I've made in the last 4 years teaching.
Sure, yeah.
I cannot go back to school. Yeah. That is my point. That is my breaking point. Tyler and I said, we can survive off of this much money. This is what we need to make. We can do that.
Yeah.
What is do you think there's a number, or is it like a situational basis? Like, what would be your suggestion to somebody that's trying to leave their W-2 job?
Sure. Yeah. If somebody's trying to, like, they hate their job, right? And they want to leave, they want to get out there. Then I think it's based on what can you survive on a monthly basis, right? Because there has to be a certain number in someone's head. Now, it's not like, hey, I have to have.
And Chase can talk about this too, because he did that same thing. So we can bounce you
so
to
it's like people are like, oh, I have to have $20,000 a month in order to quit my job, but you're only making $75,000 in your day job, so that's actually a lot. It's a lot more, right? So, but yeah, I would say each person is different. I think we talked about earlier is your investor DNA, right? What is your investor DNA, and how are you going to get to making a certain amount of passive income per month? But also, that person needs to probably live very frugal, right? You have to be frugal on your expenses, right? You don't have to have the big flashy car. Of course, you made 161,000 one month. Did you go out and buy a brand new Mercedes-Benz?
No, I didn't start spending money. Like those first couple of years where I quit, we were very, like I had a paid off Tacoma. Yeah. I did not have any other expenses. I didn't have a boat. I didn't have anything. I just lived based on what I knew that the company could afford to pay me.
Yeah, exactly. That was it. Yeah, so you have to have the right mindset in order to do that, right? And everybody's going to have a different number, but I think if you are got to a point where either you're 1 for 1, right, in your passive income or your side hustle, whatever it is, to your day job, then sure, that could be a number people want to say, hey, if I can make 75 grand a year, in my side hustle, then why do I need this day job? But then again, if you look at it like, all right, if you're making 75 grand while you have the full-time job, you're making $150,000, why would you leave your day job then, right?
If it's truly passive, right?
Yeah,
so that's
for sure.
That's
if it's active, it's a different story.
Yeah, and on a lot of investments, especially in the residential side, become active because, like Nick, for example, 100 units. Now you're actively managing them.
That's
right?
a lot.
But Nick has balls of steel. Like
yes, more than
his risk tolerance. We'll talk about Nick next. His risk tolerance is through the roof,
and I'm sure he's got processes beyond processes down like Pat, right?
Well, so now he's a property manager for his own.
Yeah. So you got processes and people doing that, right? So which is important.
Yeah, and that comes back to like not everything's passive, but like a syndication could be passive or stocks passive, right? Like those type of things, and I agree 100%. W-2, I always told like people that are like, yo, Chase, how did you become a realtor? Like, what's that lifestyle? I'm like, dude, keep your job first. Become a realtor, sell on the side until you have that active income, if that's your transition. Now you're just talking about a job change though,
sure.
Right? Yeah. Like I was already working 40 hours a week as a realtor and then 40 hours a week as my W-2 in the military as well.
Yep.
Probably more as a realtor than I was doing my military job. But so it was kind of like, for me, right? Like 60K was my lifestyle that a year. That's what I had to live on because that's what the military paid me.
Yep. Yeah.
And so if I didn't make that, I was gonna have to go find another job, like whatever that was. So I had saved up just from being a realtor, my side hustle, 60K. So I'm looking at my wife and I'm like, all right, well, we have 60K. We have 1 year to figure this the fuck out.
Sure.
At the end of the day. So it was like, either we're going to figure this out or, I'm going to go get a contracting job and do cybersecurity. And
you had a fallback plan, which is perfect.
Right.
A lot of people should or should not have that or may or may not have that when they leave a job. But if you once you make that jump, like you guys, I don't know that feeling yet. You guys do. So when you make that jump, did you work harder, right? Or did you say, all right, cool, I made that jump. All right, now I'm going to sit back and relax and go on vacations more.
I had a top producing agent talk to. He was also in the military, and he told me, he was like, dude, it'll hit you like a freight train, but as soon as it's your last day. Yeah. The next month and a half, you are going to work more than you've ever worked in your life.
Totally.
And it's just because, like, in the military, you're just used to that paycheck, every 15th and 30th. Yep. Boom, boom, boom. And it's just consistent, and it's reliable. And then you get out, and then the next month, you're like, oh, shit. No paycheck this time. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, I think you just, like, your back's against the wall. It's like clock's ticking.
Fight or flight, right?
Yeah. And then another example, Nick, you've never had a W-2 job, right?
No, I have. I mean, I've worked at like Costco, like seasonal back in the day, and I used to be a dishwasher and a cook at a restaurant when I was like 13 to like 15.
Yeah. So, but in your adult life,
no,
you never had a W-2 job.
Actually, no. I worked at the port, but that was when I was like, I think 18 or 19. Worked there for like a year.
Yeah. So you just side hustle. You just had the hustle and did the landscaping thing, and then built the portfolio without having. So there's all these different ways to skin the cat for the listeners out there. Like we have Nick, who's really never had a true full-time job for working for somebody else. And then Chase and I quit our full-time jobs. Yep. You keep your full-time job and invest in real estate way more than Chase and I invest in real estate. Like as far as numbers go, obviously the syndications and stuff are massive. So there's so many different ways for because part of this podcast is to educate people and help people. And I don't want to give out, we're not giving financial advice. We're not certified financial planners. And we've had a lot of those people on these podcasts, and they all are boring and it's not as fun. But there are situational. Like everything is situational. If you are happy with your job, keep your job.
Yes.
If you hate your job and you like your side hustle, figure out a way to safely quit the job and go full time.
Or find a new job. Yeah, exactly.
Or find a new job.
What you're doing is going to side hustle. You're finding a new job, right? So,
right. Also, there's a ton of W-2 jobs that, I mean, contracting, you know this, in the contracting world, the government world alone, there's a lot of brain dead jobs that pay you a lot of money, 150 to 160, and you may work like 20 hours a week. I mean, you're there 40, but you're really working and focusing on that job for 20 when you can work another 20 hours on your side hustle.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think, you know, what a lot of the people I talk to who are kind of not sure what to do or how to start their journey in the passive income are, you know, technology people, right? People who are in either they're in that technology space from like an engineering perspective or a sales perspective. It doesn't matter, federal government or not, it doesn't matter. But you know, they've created a great career, right, in the technology space, and they're like, hey, how do I take what I've done, right, and what I've earned so far and start creating that passive income stream, right? And that's one of the things I do a lot. And like, if people follow me on LinkedIn, is where I'm most active on that. And I'm very much to the T telling people like, hey, this is, or you know, not telling people, but, you know, explaining to people like, this is how I did it, and this is what you can do too. So, you know, a lot of technology folks make a lot of money, and they also change jobs often, right? And so when they change jobs often, what do? They leave a 401k that turns to an IRA. So what do? You take that IRA and you put it in a self-directed IRA, and you begin your passive income stream there. There's also the backdoor Roth IRA conversion, because if you make too much money, you can't
because you only can invest $7,000 a year into a Roth.
Well, you can't even put money into a Roth at all, right? So you have to put it into a traditional, that's $6,000 or $7,000 a month or a year, into a traditional, and then you transfer it to Roth and you pay taxes on that, right? But if you can offset those taxes passively, then there you go. There's a strategy for you.
Speaking of engineers, I had a couple buddies that were engineers, and they were working 2 active jobs with, you know, Google or Home Depot at the same time, doing like cybersecurity. And
really?
They would like interchange between meetings, and they were making like $250 at each job.
Oh,
so they're making $500,000 working for 2 companies, 40 hours a week. Absolutely insane.
That's a lot of work. Yeah.
But and I don't want to offend anybody by saying brain dead. It's not that the jobs are brain dead. They don't require a lot of mental focus if you are really good at your job.
Yeah, especially I feel like now with engineers with AI, I mean, that had to make a lot of people's jobs a lot easier. I know nothing about it. I can't even get into our damn bank account that we have. So Chase has this freaking online bank that he signed at this podcast. Yeah. We started a bank account. It's like an online bank, and I just texted him yesterday, dude, I can't pay this person. Can you do this? Like, I don't even know how to use it anymore.
So we established a relationship with a banker, and I think that's one of the key things to do. Especially if you have a business that, like, we open a bank account or 2 or 3 bank accounts per asset or sometimes 4 bank accounts per asset. So
for my business and all that stuff, I'm with Shore United locally. And
well, there you go. So you can just call them and be like, hey, I need a new bank account. Here's the operating agreement. You know, Chase and I or whoever our managers will sign.
I let Chase handle this one, and he picks them because he's a freaking TikTok millennial, or not a millennial. What do you call you? What Gen Z? Gen Z. We're the millennials, and he's the Gen Z guy. So I let him handle that, and we ended up with some Fruit Loop online bank.
Whatever.
Yeah, I've never heard of it before.
I just don't, you know,
Blue something or whatever. One of those things.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
So one of the things that a lot of people I'm a big proponent of, and I've used for my own investments, is also the whole life insurance policies, right? How to become your own banker or BYOB or infinite banking. You guys ever heard of that concept before?
So I actually just went through the life insurance. I had life insurance, and I was a dumbass and didn't pay, because if you pay annually, it's like 3% less than if you pay monthly. So I paid annually for my term life insurance, and then it lapsed. So I had to go get the physical done and all that stuff again. And my insurance broker, I had a meeting. I had my insurance broker and my CPA on the meeting. And I said, the minimum for the whole life policy was $15,000 a year, and I would have to pay into it for, I think, 14 years or something. And then you have it. And that was like for $2 million of life insurance. So we can go back and forth on this, because my CPA then looked at the returns through State Farm that the whole life policy was getting versus what I'm getting at Merrill Lynch with my actively managed accounts over there.
Sure, yeah.
And he said to me that it didn't really make sense to go that route because of the returns. And at Merrill Lynch, I have CMA accounts that I can borrow against anyway.
Sure,
so what would be the benefit to doing a whole life policy versus a term? Because just to put it in perspective, a term for the same $2 million was only like $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
But you never get that back.
Yep, you don't get it back, and it falls off after you're 55 or
30
60,
years. It's a 30-year term.
30. Okay, so you'll be, what, 65 or so?
65.
Yeah, so what happens when you die at 66, right? So,
well, the idea, I guess, and you can straw man me on this, but the idea when I'm 66, the assets that I currently own will be the life insurance policy.
So there's that Dave Ramsey thing of buy term, invest the rest, right? Which is exactly what you're talking about. And then there's the concept of infinite banking, or money optimization of that money as well too, right? So I like to make sure I use this myself, right? So I've got multiple insurance policies on myself, whole life insurance policies, right? I want to make sure people understand this is that it's not for the investment. Like, I would never call a life insurance policy an investment, right? It's protection, right? And that's one of the pillars of, I think it's a major pillar, along with LLCs and trusts and so forth, that you can do to protect yourself and your family against anything that happens, right? Against the unspeakable. You pass away, right? At whatever age, between now and 120, right, your family is going to get that death benefit, right? If you get sued, right, for some reason, you guys, someone slips and falls on one of your properties or something like that, and they sue you, they cannot touch that money in your life insurance, in your cash value of your life insurance, right? So it's protected from that as well too. And it grows, right? So it does grow. It compounds every single year.
It was like 4%.
Yeah. So usually when you look at an illustration, and again, I'm not a life insurance broker. I just love I'm just a nerd about this kind of stuff, right? So, but I do have partners. I'm partnered in a company called Money Insights that they are the brokers, right? And they're the ones who can kind of run through the illustrations and show people this is what you do and how you do it. But what it does is you've got a guaranteed return, right? And so on average, that guaranteed return is going to be 3%, right? And it depends on the company too. You have to look for a mutual company, not an index life mutual company, right? And there's a difference between IULs and whole life insurance policy. I don't like the IULs that are indexed, market based, and so forth, because it fluctuates. And
we looked at that too.
And then I'll see if you, and it also depends on how you construct the policy, because if you borrow against it, then you don't get returns. If it's structured correctly, you will get returns. Then there's a mutual company like the Mass Mutuals, the Northwesterns, or the One Life Americas and Lafayette's and those guys, right? So the mutual companies pay a guaranteed return, 3%. Not a lot of money, but it's just kind of equivalent to like a high yield savings account, yeah. And then they have a dividend, and they haven't missed a dividend in 160 years. Now think about that. So they've paid dividends and the return, guaranteed return, to their policyholders for over 160 years. That's longer than we can think of for a lot of things in this country that have happened. More than technology, more than Ford cars, all these kind of different things, right? So you don't want to think of it as an investment. You want to think of it as a protection for you and your family, and for your wealth, right? Now, what I did, right, is I took $100,000 and I funded my policy up front. So I overfunded it, right? And then I also have it structured where it's got a paid up addition and then also has a premium. So you've got the overfunding, a paid up addition, and a premium. So every year, I put in $40,000 into my policy every single year, right? And I can immediately take and borrow against that policy, right? And it still grows, compounds every single year. And I do the upfront payment once a year as well too. So the BYOB, the infinite banking side of the house, right, is borrow against that and then go buy a car, right, for example. All right, so you borrow like $50,000 from your policy, and you go to a car or go to a dealership, and you buy that car for cash, right? But you treat it like the bank. So if you're going to get a 6% or a 5% interest rate from a bank on a monthly basis, and you've got a 5-year term on that car's loan, and let's just round numbers. Let's say it's $500 a month. You pay yourself $500 a month, right? And you put that into a specific bank account, and in the year you pay your premium and you pay the interest on that. And it's simple interest, right? But you can pay principal down as much as you want, and then you have a simple interest payment. So what you're effectively doing is you're paying into the insurance company and you're getting that return back in your policy. So even though you're paying a 5% interest rate, which was the interest rates of the policies that I have, I'm getting a 6% return on my money there. So I'm actually making money in that policy there. Now, how you actually optimize those, that's buying a car, right? That's one thing. Like buying like expenses, and like you don't want to pay credit cards off of that kind of stuff, right? You want to use it for an asset of some sort, right? But what's really valuable is when you use that insurance, that cash value of that insurance to optimize it, right? And you take that 50 grand out and you pay a 5% on that annually, right? But you find an investment that pays 10%, right? So then you're arbitraging, right? And you're making 10% on that investment. You're paying 5%, but your insurance policy pays you 6%. So really you're making 16% on that same dollar if you put it into that bank first. It all depends on where do you put it first. Going back to the Morgan Stanley thing, if you have your money in the bank account, right, and your and I do this too. I have a securities backed loan as well too, right? So I do that also. That's also kind of another arbitrage method as well too.
Is there anything you don't do?
No, not really. I was kidding. It's wild. But if you take let's say you have that $50,000 and you don't have the loan from your Morgan Stanley. Let's say you take that $50,000 and you invest it into a rental property first, right? Or into a passive income first, right? That will make that 10% return, and that's it, right? And then the money's out of the bank account, so it's not earning any money there, right? So it's only earning money in that investment account, just at one spot. But if you put it into a life insurance policy first, right, and you're making that guaranteed return plus the compound effect of that policy every single year, plus you're making the dividend when they pay you a dividend, you are effectively making money in two different places. Plus you have that guarantee of that death benefit in case something happens to you, which I think is the most important thing. Again, that's why I don't want to say, I never tell people the life insurance policy is your investment. No, it's your method to how you become your own bank and how you drive more return on that same dollar, right? And a lot of people don't get that. It's a very hard concept to understand. You got to like watch. I watched a shit ton of videos on it, right? I mean, I followed this guy, on YouTube who had, 100 videos on it, and I watched almost every single one of them just to kind of understand it. And then I also went and got a couple of different people to give me life insurance policies, so I understood the quotes and so forth, or understood the illustrations and how it worked. And I was skeptical at first, but then I did it, and I'm like, oh, okay, that works. Oh, I am getting a dividend. This year I got like 6.25 or something like that from my Mass Mutual for a dividend in my life insurance policy. And now I also have a $2 million death benefit, right? In case something happens to me, I pass away, right? My family's protected. Right.
That I will say I've learned this year, and I don't know if Nick has one. I know Chase is a little young for this yet,
no,
but
you're never too young for it. You should get one, 100%.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah, because actually when you are younger, it is cheaper.
Much cheaper.
It's much cheaper. Yeah. So
especially if you're healthy, non-smoker, young male. Right. Yeah.
We could talk about a funny story about that too. So, so I learned about life insurance recently, and key man insurance, or we'll call it key person insurance to be politically correct. So that is very important for business partners that would not be able to operate the business effectively without the other.
Sure.
So like my business partner is operating a commercial construction company basically under our umbrella. He's building multiple big buildings that I have no idea how to do.
Totally.
So if he died, I would need to hire somebody that would cost a lot of money to hire to figure out how to fulfill the contracts that we are in. Like we're in $2 million. Let's say we're in a $2 million contract to build a building.
Totally. Yeah.
That we're redoing Penthouse, the strip club in the city.
Yeah, you're talking about that. Yeah.
It's all metal structural beams and framing. I don't know anything about that. Like he knows all of that stuff. Without him, it would be a huge failure. So that is key man or key person insurance. That is super important when you're operating a business, that if that other partner died, you would have money to hire and get at least through those contracts, so you don't get sued by those people, because that's what would end up happening. I would default on the contract.
Yeah. And so I don't know, is that set up the same way as like a whole life insurance policy?
No, it's term.
Okay. Oh, it's term? Okay.
It is term.
Because you can it actually would probably make more sense to do a whole life insurance policy in that factor.
It was just a lot.
Yeah, because you probably have to, if you're trying to get a death benefit of $5 million or 10 million.
It would be.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money because it would have to be for at least $5 million would be like the absolute minimum just based on the contracts that we have. We're about a $10 million company now. It's like if we didn't have that, it would, that is a whole nother thing.
Well, also, just so you know, the way they structure those policies too is that usually there's a term rider in there that allows the death benefit to be large enough to cover the cash that you're putting into it on an annual basis too. So that's how you do it when you don't. So the policy won't what's called MEC, which would be like then it turns into like this is now an investment account. It's not an investment account. It's a life insurance policy, right?
Yep. And then the other one is just like a term life insurance policy, which is important, especially like we're having kids.
Yeah.
That my wife would not be able to live her lifestyle she works as a teacher. She could not live the lifestyle or sustain what we have if I died.
Yeah.
So that is super important. And that's why now I have the policies in place to, protect her and the kids. So it's really just to protect that next generation or your wife or husband, whatever, from the, hopefully,
So I think also, you can do both, right? You can have a term policy that is going to be a bigger death benefit for yourself. It's a smaller payment that will last between now and when you potentially retire, right? But you should also look into doing the whole life insurance policies now because they last for your lifetime, right? And that's the most important thing. So your kids are the ones who are going to benefit from your death benefit, right? When you pass, and if that's structured correctly, and also if it's owned by a trust, right? So your trust, right, owns the actual policy, even though it's your policy, right? You can then also still borrow against that, right? And the trust then borrows the money or lends you the money. But if you structure the trust correctly, then the kids, right, don't just take that money and run, right? Or don't take the money and go to Vegas or buy a Lambo, right? They're now putting a policy on themselves and their kids all owned by the trust, right? It's called the Rockefeller method, right? So the Rockefellers did that, and now their generational wealth is insane for generations past when he initially started this thing, right? So versus the Vanderbilts, like the whole story about the Vanderbilts,
they lost everything second generation.
They were more wealthy than Rockefellers back in the day, but they lost it after the first generation or second generation because they didn't have this structure in place, right? So
and it's always the second generation that messes it up because they were the ones that were coddled and enabled because their parents had so much money.
Yeah. So again, it's not my kids aren't going to mess it up, but their kids could probably do that, right? But if I teach my kids correctly of how to do this, and it goes back to being young and putting it on it. Like I think now is the best time to do it because if you even do a $10,000 a year policy, right? Which is, let's just say it's a $500 or $750,000 death benefit or something like that. Actually, maybe less. I don't even know what the number would be. Let's say you put up $10,000 a year into your policy. By the time you're 40 or 50 years old, you're going to have a massive cash value that you can then pull against and use that for your investments, right?
And it's based on, this is the funny story. I'm not going to say the whole thing, but I'll give you a snippet. Like it goes on your health. They do take blood, they take urine, they take, they come and do a physical. And so there's like super elite, super preferred, whatever. The highest one was, they tried to give me the one down because technically my weight, now I'm like in very good shape. We do Ironmans, like,
sure, yeah.
Luckily, I've posted a lot on Facebook about my training because they tried to give me the one step below the top, which would have costed me more money annually because of your
BMI.
My BMI.
I hate the BMI, dude.
Is over. I have a six pack. I'm like,
you're ripped, and you're big, so you've got muscle. So your BMI weighs more than fat.
So your BMI is higher. So they try to get me low. My insurance broker sent my Facebook and Instagram to the underwriter and was like, look at this guy. He literally posts every day about training for fucking triathlons and Ironmans. And they gave me the top one.
Perfect. Yeah. He was in Cabo doing 5 miles a day on his vacation. I saw one couple of years ago.
Which is so funny that like all the dumb posts that I make on social media actually came to helped
you out, right?
So that's why you've been posting more recently. I
got to keep my life insurance underwriters happy.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. Like, I love the fact that you guys are doing Ironmans. Like, more power to you. Like, I think I tried at one point to get myself to do a triathlon. I just never did. In fact, I bought a bike, or I know my neighbor gave me a bike. This is like 20 years ago when I was living in Virginia. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna fix this bike up and I'm gonna do a triathlon. I just never did. I think swimming always scared me, right? And even though I'm a good swimmer, right, just the distance of a swimming, I think, is what scared me. But it's
always the swimming that keeps people from doing it, and then it's funny once you figure out swimming, it's the easiest part of the whole thing.
So maybe I need to take that kind of advice and join you guys in your next triathlon. In fact, I gave
you could come train with us every morning at LA Fitness. We're there.
Yeah, I train every morning. I go to Apex Performance right down the road here, right behind the bowling alley. And it's CrossFit type workouts, but it's functional fitness, right? So it's you got your gymnastics still, you got your heavy weights and your cardios and so forth, right? So, but I've been doing that for, I don't know, 8-9 years or so right now.
Triathlon, I'll tell you this, it's addicting and it's fun and it's challenging and mentally just like it was the best thing that I ever got into for myself, because I was always an athlete. And I played ice hockey. That's a very hard thing to do as an adult, because any adult league is going to be at 10 o'clock at night. It's tough to field a team of 10 people. So triathlon's an individual sport. You can train by yourself. We don't treat it as an individual sport. We train together. There's a nice big group of us that do it together. And it is so much fun. The mental challenge behind it, the physical challenge behind it, all of that, like, I can't recommend it enough. Chase,
I
was literally about to say I would beg to differ, but I'm more of a sports guy though. Like I like basketball, flag football. When I first moved here, I played flag football for 3 years, like competitively. That's in my DNA. I like that team sports, the underdog feeling.
The Broncos.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like the Ironman though, it is like, I couldn't do this if it weren't like we had a good group, just mentally by yourself. Like,
sure.
Even today, right? Like we're in the pool and I'm just like, this is Friday. I am over this already. And then we had to run after. So the mental toughness brings me back to like the military and like, all right, hey, this is what you had to do. We're going to do it.
No, I love it.
You got to stay dialed. Important. That's what's nice about it. Like you have to stay dialed. We're about to race Puerto Rico in a couple 6 weeks from now. And like, if you don't stay dialed, you will fail out there and you will fall over and like, it will not be pretty.
Sure.
And that to me, like, I always want to have some race that I'm signed up for to keep me pushing,
motivated,
and going in that direction. So I have a coach who's a professional. She was a professional Ironman person like that. She's won.
I was saying, is it David Goggins?
Basically, if you saw this lady, you'd think she was David Goggins. Yeah. She's a beast. But that keeps me like paying her her monthly fee. She puts in the workouts into my app. I have a Training Peaks app that she puts all those workouts in. It keeps me structured because it's easy to just not go to. It's easy to stop, like not go. It's easy to not train if you don't have something to train for,
or people to go,
or people
to show up for,
too,
right? Like
sure.
honestly, like I'm swear to God, if it weren't for them and the way they bully me,
we all bully each other purposely. It's a calculated bullying to make sure everybody's held accountable.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because over COVID, I was going to the gym before COVID, right, doing CrossFit before COVID. And once COVID hit, we shut down for like 6 months, and I was at a buddy's house, and he's like, "Hey, my neighbor has this good gym. Go hang out and work out with him." So we did that. I think I did it like twice. I'm like, this is just not the same feel, right? Working out in someone's garage or my basement or something like that. Like I don't get the motivation, right? But so I'm always about making sure I start my day off with a workout, right? So I get up at 5:45. I go to the gym 6 to 7. I'm home before kids got to go to school. And it starts my day off strong, right? It makes me more motivated to do that. And I'm awake versus if I slept in until 7:30, I wake up and I'm like groggy. Mm-hmm. In fact, this past couple of days of the snowstorm, I was like itching to go back to the gym. I'm like, I need to go back to the gym. I can't go run outside, right? I can't work out in my basement. I don't have anything in my basement to work out in. And I miss the team. I miss the guys there and the gals that are at the gym. Like those are like our 6 a.m. crew. Like we're the 6 a.m. crew. Like that's what people call us, right? Because there's like a 5 or 6 rotating that are always there, right, on one of the 5 days. And it's important to have that motivation, but also that camaraderie too. Mm-hmm. I think that's important. So I love what you guys are doing too. That's awesome.
We're trying to get Nick in there.
Nick, just do it, man.
Oh well. How about we do one with them together?
I won't do an Ironman. Fuck no.
Okay, half Ironman.
Half Ironman, which is what? Tell me what it is.
We'll do Eagle Man. Okay. We're already signed up for it. I don't know if Chase is, but I am.
But I will.
We have a very large group of people doing Eagleman, and it's right in Cambridge, right at the Cambridge Hyatt.
Okay.
So you've been there, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've been there.
Local, great race, easy course because it's all flat. Don't worry about the distances; it doesn't matter. Because you'll just train for it. No, it's a. So
what is it?
It's a half Ironman. It's a 1.2 mile swim.
Okay.
So that's about 35.
Is that in the river or?
It's in the chop tank.
Okay. Yeah.
It's about 35, 40 minutes.
Okay.
For a not good swimmer. Like I'm not a fast swimmer, and we'll do about 40 minutes.
Okay.
And then it's a 56-mile bike, which is about 3 hours, and then a half marathon.
Okay.
My time at the last one was, I think, 5 hours and 19 minutes or something like that. So it's not like crazy. The full Ironman was a whole different.
Yeah. That's a bog. That's a different. That's
a whole
beast.
different beast.
Yeah.
But the half Ironman is a very fun distance because we've done a lot of like Olympic distances and sprint distances, which is Olympic is basically half of a half Ironman.
Okay.
So a quarter Ironman, and then a sprint is half of that.
Gotcha.
So a sprint is like not enough. It's like an hour.
Yeah, I mean, but going from never doing that and then jumping into like a half Ironman, or is that like
that? No, it's not.
Fun.
We have Chauncey who is doing his first triathlon. Will be that.
Yeah.
My future brother-in-law Jim just signed up for that. That will be his first triathlon as well.
It's a triathlon. It's not a
Ironman is a triathlon.
So the first one is going to be the half.
What?
Their first one is going to be the half one.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Interesting. When is this? When is it happening?
It's June 6th or something like that.
Okay.
So you got plenty of time.
Okay. Now you
can come to the gym. You can come swim with us.
Yeah.
We'll teach you how to swim. Honestly, once you figure out the swimming, you will not be scared of swimming at all. It is the easiest part of the whole race.
It's funny is so going back to college, or going back to high school and so forth. My dad was a swim coach for high school, right? For growing up, so I know how to swim very well. From freestyle wise and so forth. The distance is what kind of gets me, and I'm not really a long distance swimmer, but it always got me. But here's a funny story, right? Two funny stories about that. So growing up, my dad's like, Jeff, please. I was an athlete. I played pretty much every sport except for tackle football. Mm-hmm. I even did gymnastics. I did ice hockey, baseball, all that kind of stuff, right? And he's like, Jeff, please go out for the high school swim team. I'm like, all right, Dad. And he's like, it was like my junior year. I'm like, all right, fine, okay, I'll go do it. But you have to buy me a Mustang, right? Because like Mustangs were like the thing. I wanted a 5-speed GT or a LS Mustang, right? And he's like, all right, fine. And then my mom got a wind of it, and she said, hell no, we're not buying you a Mustang. I'm like, okay, shit. I guess I did not swim in that. So I feel like a dick doing that, but I never swam like for schools or any of that kind of stuff. And it's funny is I married a collegiate swimmer, right? So my wife is a collegiate swimmer.
God,
right?
you have no excuses. I had no idea how to swim. So my first race, I had swam in the pool, practiced. My first race was in the ocean.
Yeah.
And I literally thought I was going to drown the entire time I was swimming. It was just a sprint, luckily, so it was only 750 meters. But I thought the whole entire time I was going to drown because that was my first open water swim.
Or against tide, though, or the current?
So it was choppy. So it was coming from the side.
Yeah.
And it would happen to be coming from the side that I breathe on. Mm. So I only
breathing into the water the entire
So I was
time?
breathing into waves, and they were just smacking me in the face. And every time I came up to breathe, I'd get smacked in the face of the wave. So that whole time, I went out for a practice swim the day before. I got out of the water. I called my mom. I said, Mom, I might die tomorrow.
Oh, jeez.
And I got through it, and then I hired a coach and figured out swimming. And then once we figured out swimming, there was a point where it clicked, right? For you too?
Yeah. I had no practice, no business even being in the water, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
And I thought I could swim, and I'd get in the pool and I'd do 2 strokes, and I'd be like, holy crap, I'm swallowing water. What is going on?
Yeah.
And then you get the flippers, and there's a point
you use
that
flippers?
No, not in the race.
Not in the race.
When you're practicing and learning, it's great.
Yeah.
There's toys, we call swim toys, that will help you to
flippers
practice
and hand things,
to help you practice to getting the breathing down. Once you can get the breathing and the stroke down, it's literally the easiest part of the entire race.
Yeah. And then you have your safety swims, right? Like
a breaststroke or whatever.
And then
you stop doing that. Once you get to a certain point, we don't do breaststroke anymore. It's straight.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. It depends on how I'm feeling halfway through the swim.
Every now and then I think there's a shark trying to attack me, so I'll do a little breaststroke.
But it is super fun. They have them all over the place, and we're going to Puerto Rico in a couple weeks to do Puerto Rico half Ironman, and we're doing Cambridge. We did one in the Miami Zoo, which was really cool. So we swam. We swam and ran, like we were running and seeing like elephants and whatever animals. Yeah. So like, and the culture, man, is just like all these people. It's mostly people that are like ex-addicts or you know, like that are sober
or athletes
or like they've had some sort of trauma because they want to like mentally, you know, whatever. But it is like the culture you get there, and like at Eagle, man, there'll be 3,000 people there.
That's a lot.
And they're just like, it's just that energy that I haven't felt that like that since I went and played like a championship game in high school hockey. Yeah. Like it's like just that energy is just unmatched.
That's awesome.
And that's why I like it.
All right. Well, you're convincing me, so it might take a little more, but yes, you're convincing me about it.
I'll keep selling you. Yeah. So, while we're going to wrap this up. So how can people get in touch with you so they can either invest in your syndications, or you can get, you know, coaching through your coaching platform? Sure. Like what's your... So
the best way to kind of follow me on LinkedIn, and you can have conversation there, and you can schedule a meeting through there as well too. So it's linkedin.com/it's Jeff-Ervick, right? So we'll put it in the show notes as well too. They can also go to our website too. It's valoriscapitalpartners.com, and on there has everything from my ebooks for passive income to ebook for life insurance. The investment optimizer has information about our fund, our past deals, and then also our who we are as partners and what we look for as well too. So
awesome. You got anything else?
No, that was great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. It's been awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Until next time, guys.
All right, see ya.